Sweet. Yeah. So let's just roll into it. What do you think?
Sounds good.
So, Andrew, I know that you're currently the founder of Foxwell Community Founder Community. Can you? That's a very new concept. Can you like tell me a little bit like what it's about and what is your role there?
Absolutely, yeah. So I currently run the Foxwell Founders community, and you can learn about us at foxwellfounders.com. And Foxwell Founders is the largest paid community of D2C e-commerce operators, so direct-to-consumer e-commerce operators in the world. We have about 600 members from 30 countries around the world, and our group spends on average about a $500 million a month just on Meta alone. Our group also is comprised of a lot of bigger spenders, but also a lot of people that are smaller, that are, doing things with service-based businesses or smaller businesses. And so we really support people that are the advertiser throughout their journey. The group is about 65%, 70%
Hmm.
agencies and agency owners, and then the rest is people that own brands or brand owners or people that work in-house at brands. So it's a very active group. We really started it because I felt alone after the pandemic in terms of the advice that I was getting and giving. And
Hmm.
I felt like there was all of these things that were new and there was no one to really talk about them with. And certainly Twitter or X didn't really feel good. And we already had a Facebook group that we'd had for many years. And people would ask questions in there and we would answer. And so I thought, why not try a community? Why not try to see what could happen with
Hmm.
this?
Hmm. This is like back
So
in what 2021, right?
this is
When
2021.
you okay, when you,
Yeah.
and I know you also like you also back in the days you're like also deep into performance marketing before you roll into this role, right?
Yeah, so I've been doing Facebook advertising since it was created. I've been doing it, for my entire professional career almost.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I've specifically spent time, in e-commerce launching Facebook ads. So
Sure.
I've done everything sideways in terms of what you can do with Facebook ads and Meta ads. And it's fun. Like I worked with all different sizes of businesses, all different types of things, utilizing, Meta in creative ways to get leads and things like that. So there's a lot that we do, and it's a ton of fun. I mean, it's always interesting. It's always changing, and that's one thing. As I get older, I realize that I know a lot less than I thought I
Mhm.
did. It's every day goes past. So
It is a pretty new thing though, Foxwell, like this community. The way I think about it is like, like you have untrained, unprocessed, unfiltered data like ChatGPT could offer, just answer anything. But then versus this, now it's becoming a highly, a very, potent, very, very expert signal. Basically, you have a lot of resource available at the same time. Now, I wonder when you first started, like it seems like this is a very, like it's a new thing. I really feel like it is like, and especially now, it's becoming probably a new model for business in the future as well. Like, what was that transition process like for you? Like, you having a normal agency job, like doing this versus like, shit, let's give up all of this and this might be the thing. Like what went through your mind and was it like smooth sailing for you?
yeah, I mean, nothing's ever smooth sailing. So much of what we started it on was this idea that humans want to connect and belong to something, and that sort of by sharing openly with one another we're all stronger. There wasn't really a place. There was a lot of like back channel things that were happening, but there really wasn't a place for that. And so that's why we created it as just a forum to see if we bring together some of our favorite people who do this work, what do they think and how are they how are they going to be
Hmm.
supported and how are they going to interact and ask questions. So things have really grown from like what members want. I think communities have been around for a long time, and they've taken different, I mean, forms as time's gone on.
Yeah,
But like in
yeah.
our sense, I think today with AI being what it is and continuing to be so superfluous and everywhere, the more that we can connect as human beings and the more that we can talk and that there's empathetic conversation and listening and true listening, the better off we're going to be. And that's really what we've done. The transition into it was for me easy. I've always been a person that likes to, like, before launching the community, we built a lot of courses and education as well on meta ads, and when we did that, my theory and my wife, who's my business partner, Gracie, our theory was basically like, we're going to build courses that are going to speak to a bunch of different opinions of, like, this person says this is another method, this is another method, and you get to decide the best one for you. And so it was sort of like, that was the transition of, I just can show that more and say, like, here's how we make decisions. There's this way to do it. There's this way to do it. And that's really what the community was born out of. So, it was, the transition into it was, I didn't really know this was going to transition into something I do full time. Like, we have run Foxwell Digital, the company, for 13 years now. And we've only been doing this for 5. And had our agency, and we were I still do a lot of consulting on meta ads.
Right.
As of a year ago, I'm no longer like running ads myself. I'm just consulting them on them, because I've been doing it for so long, and consulting with account managers and things like this. And so I didn't ever think this was going to be something that would be like, it's so much work. Like, now really what I do is support so many people. And what it comes down to all day long is just talking to people like you, right? Like, what's going on in your business? What are the challenges you're facing? The client wants this. What do you think I should say? And being that resource. And, like, we have our community managers and stuff that are in there, but I'm still in there every day, right? And I wake up to like 20 to 30 direct messages every day from members around the world asking me different things. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and I really love the work that I do.
I love that. And I can't help to think about, like, in the AI stage of rethinking about this thing, like, if you're really thinking about it, like, you're also building really good data at the same time. Like, like, I use like, I know we have this, like, community build bot as one of the features for members. I love that. I love the shit out of it. It's so cool because like, now I could actually learn from the best data that's already being created, and I'm gonna contribute in creating new knowledge from that even faster. It's kind of like a very high potent and well trained data. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
actually on its own, it's becoming a huge advantage.
Certainly, I think that's true. I think you look for signal in different places, and there's sort of signal that's written out in blogs, right? That's one way, and obviously, predominantly, that's where LLMs pull from. And then there's like video
Right.
based stuff on YouTube that people are sharing and things. But many
Hmm.
times that stuff is gated. And they'll say, to get the real tactics, you have to join my community or whatever. And with us, what we've done is basically try to feed everything into this bot as possible. That's based on real human signal of people talking about it. And so we put call transcripts in there from every call that we have. We put obviously all the conversations from Slack in there. We put so much information in there on a daily basis, honestly, that it contextualizes it and wraps it into a way of, like, you can do this, and helps you, yeah, just make better decisions, right, of what people are saying. So it's definitely a data warehouse powerhouse is really important to me and to us. And I think that'll only continue to get stronger because the signal is based on what real people are saying. It's not just what
Yeah, it's
we
crazy.
have
And
in
it's
some
also,
database.
and it's like you have a almost like a perfect model, like, with with all the real examples, people give you real feedback, and everyone trying to really problem solving at the same time, and these data also used to train the bot. It's just, I feel like that's what I feel like. It's like the business model are changing, and agency, the world of agency, I think is also changing as well. Um, Andrew, I don't know, if I'm curious about your thought on this. I feel like the the era of, like, traditional agency was like this accounting, this whole thing. will go away very soon. And I think like the era of like one person or couple persons, smaller agency actually can just make a bigger impact. Is actually coming. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that a shop of a small amount of people can make a lot of impact. I think that is true. I think that agency shape and formation is going to take a lot of different routes as time goes on. The one that we've seen most in recent years is basically like the shift towards creative being predominantly what the agency is doing. Right, so there's growth levers that they're pulling within Meta Ads account in terms of building and in terms of structure and in terms of knowing how to bid and that kind of thing, and the tactical know-how within Meta. But I also think there's a shift to a lot of people have just started to make ads and make better ads, and that's really the signal that Meta's looking for. So I think if you're, I think the way that agencies will continue to evolve from here forward is going to really depend on what you're looking for in the business and what you're hoping to achieve and solve, right? Like, I think if you're running your agency, let's say you're running a service-based business and you're looking to partner with an agency, I think a lot of the function of growth from your standpoint can be run by you if you choose to educate yourself to the right. So I think you're going to need an agency later, potentially. Mm-hmm. I also, though, think there's also the idea that we can never underestimate the power of people not wanting to do something. Business owners are really busy and they're really slammed on stuff. And so I think there always will be a place for agencies, for someone to say, I have $3,000 a month, I have $2,500 a month, I have $1,500 a month or whatever, and I'm going to hand that to an agency, and you agency are going to help me figure this out, right? I think there's a lot of small business owners are really overwhelmed by this. So I think you can see both routes taking place. I think as they, what I mean by, to my earlier point about evolving of what you really need is the identification and understanding of, okay, look, I actually know that Meta, what I need better advertising. I need better ads. And I can, and so the agency is going to be functioning as an ad agency. They're not going to be functioning necessarily as a Meta ads agency, and they're going to help you build better creative that you're going to be able to put on Meta yourself. Or, my point is I think the way that you think about it was basically I'm going to hire an agency and they're one and done. And I think that now the small business owner has at their fingertips the ability to do a lot of this themselves if they choose to, and use agencies in a more piecemeal fashion that have a specific set of things that they're doing for that particular agency.
I couldn't agree more. I think small business definitely have more tools now, which also is also leading a much quicker way to create terrible mistake at the same time.
Yeah,
they think they know what they're doing, right? See a lot of that. Almost every small account I take on. I think agency need to do more in terms of, it can't be the old days of just media buy. I think that's where there's still a lot of gap. I mean, if you scan through this, everyone call them agency, but they do so little, involvement with strategy, but just literally push the button and for the media buy execution. And I think with the AI and all these tools available, the execution repetitive layer is, it's no longer a problem. I think that's why I think smaller agency, quicker decision, flexible, more adaptable, and be able to lean into how business really function is going to make a really big difference in small business, especially.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think there's just a lot of people that say it's the death of agencies. It's what but I don't think that's true. I think that one, people are always going to want to hire expertise. They don't have the time, and I think two, the agencies that are adapting, that I see adapting well now, they're doing different parts of the marketing funnel, and they're doing more strategy, and they're also becoming a better true partner to the business in terms of financial calculations, in terms of understanding how much money they can spend before they can, looking at the profit margins, et cetera, et cetera. Right. That's not something we used to do. So the agency model and the agency makeup is really shifting, basically, of what the agency purpose is in the relationship, and it ultimately is going to help the end consumer. there always will be a place though for agencies to help on Meta, because the thing is that Meta and Google, I mean, you look at any of these, like they're complex, right? Like I
Hmm.
could go on
Yeah.
right now and I could launch. I don't know very little about Google Ads, but let's just say like I went on to launch Google Ad, like it would be a disaster. Like it's that Google can say like with Performance Max, like we'll put it where you want and all this, but like
It
that's
might not
never
seem
gonna.
that way at all as you were creating it, but you just like, okay,
Right. You're just
sure,
like,
let
oh,
me
this
take
seems
your
great, right? But
recommendation.
like you're wasting money. And so that
Yeah.
idea of this layer of expertise that's always going to say, this is the way that I do it, is huge. And I think you can see that
Yeah.
already with AI, where basically everybody has access to the same AI, okay?
Hmm.
Basically. But what's happening is people are building infrastructure on top of that that either is helping their team or, or
Hmm.
making better creative or whatever it is. And the idea of the route to get there is the part that people are willing to pay for. They just don't. They need a map basically, and that's what
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
agency is providing. And so I think that agency relationship's always going to be good. And I think if you're a small business owner or a service based business, that's good news for you because the offering that
Yeah,
you're going
I
to be
think
shown is
there's
better.
still a lot of the system, you can embed it in and help optimize creating that. A lot of times people talking about like contents creative, instead of actually creating the contents for your client, a lot of agency now should really starting to figure out how to create a system that your client can easily creating a content farm easily.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think it really depends on looking at your business. And let's say you ran a restaurant or something. I mean, I don't know, whatever. Or let's say you run an HVAC business that does heating and cooling or whatever. And you're looking for leads all day long. The thing that you're really wondering is like what part of the system am I lacking currently? And what part of like where do I need support that an agency can help me augment this or AI can help me think through this? And I think a lot of it has to do with the idea of putting things out there from a marketing standpoint. How are people recognizing you? What are ways that are creative to get out there? And then how do you utilize AI to start to build it out and sort of say, all right, it's a creative issue. We're going to build creative this way, and that's how we're going to start to build it. And the partner is going to help us with that. And we're going to be able to operate the meta ads ourselves. We're going to be able to upload them from what the agency is giving us. Like I'm saying, that there's all these routes to kind of identifying what the issue is that you particularly have, and then mapping that to how AI can assist you to maybe save a little bit and also help you map the initial journey and then connect you to the right people so that you're not just hiring a marketing agency that's going to do everything, but you're hiring a piece of that so that you have a little bit more control.
I love that, and I think that's definitely becoming a relationship from a lot of clients I'm managing. Yeah, it's more in the past. It's definitely not as lenient. Uh, Andrew, I want to kind of lean back a little bit to this community and your daily effort. Like I can tell you're so passionate in all this, like, meta and stuff that's going out there. And like, and you're also available to people like me sitting down to an hour and like 600 people. Like, how do you make yourself available like to all these people, and how do you managing your time right now?
Yeah, time management is always a challenge, I think, for everybody, right? I think there's a couple different things that I do is go through every day and I look at like what are the most important things that I need to do today. And I learned a model from a business coach many years ago that was basically what's the one thing you have to accomplish today, right? And
Mm-hmm.
making sure that that's the first thing that I do in the day. So to me, it's different every day of what it is, but that's essentially what I'm like looking at. And aside from that as well, one of the most important things I do every day is talking to members. So to me, that is like if I can get the one thing accomplished, and sometimes that's helping a member with something, sometimes that's building a presentation, sometimes that's reaching out to potential members, whatever it might be. And then there's always this piece of member management. So that's those are the most important things that I do in my day, which is, are we building awareness of the Foxwell brand and getting done the things that we need to get done on like the individual basis and taking care of people, because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
taking care of members pays for itself over time. People talk to people, we've done very little marketing on our own, ironically, because there's such a big, discussion. People hear about us and can feel the passion that I have. So that's one. Another thing with time management is I time block quite heavily. So I don't typically we're recording this in the morning, but typically like I set the time later actually initially, and then we moved it back because now I'm doing something at noon. I'm trying to swim a mile once a week now in the pool. Okay, so
Okay.
so I
Okay.
do. So I always like have some time blocked off that is open time in my day, usually 3 to 4 hours. And a lot of people don't do this. I mean, it's like this is a very crazy thing, but I was taught this by my coach many years ago, and this is like something that I've built towards. This wasn't an overnight thing, but basically, I really don't work until noon most days. I don't actually like take meetings, rather, excuse me. But I'm working in the morning, so I'm working on things, doing deep work, and then sometimes I'm also that includes like I'll go on a bike ride, a mountain bike ride. I'll go to the gym, and that to me is time that I'm functionally like making myself like mentally more like on top of it and giving, and then I'm able to go back in. So I do a little bit of work in the morning when I'm waking up, and then I stop, and then like I'm doing other things while I'm thinking about stuff. So this morning I took the dog for like a 45-minute walk, and I was going through and just was thinking about a whole bunch of different stuff that we have going for our upcoming event in Salt Lake City. And you know, this kind of stuff, right? It's like deep work time to free think. I think that many people don't realize how opening up your own time is actually seems selfish, but it's one of the most powerful things that you can do, because most people don't even give themselves the time to think of like, why am I doing this, what about this, what about that, what about that. So I've really worked over time to make sure to understand like what are the things I uniquely can do, and then what are the things that my staff can uniquely do, and making sure that we're all in the right positions so that we're all doing the right things that we uniquely are positioned to do. And that's taken a number of years to get there, but basically that's how I run my schedule. So I'm quite hardcore about it. Usually then every day around 3 o'clock, like I obviously pick up my daughter at school, depending on the day, 3, 4 o'clock, and then we'll be with her, and I'm not looking at anything until like later on in the evening. So I'm trying to be more hardcore around time blocking of like, this is when I work, this is when I don't. It creeps in,
Love
of
it.
course. It depends on the day, but
Yeah.
to me, like what's, and I haven't said this too much publicly, but like to me, what's made our business what it is today is the free time that we have like held and not filled with meetings, to be able to free think about the why. There's a ton of intentionality in our business and in our life. And people say like, wow, you have all that time, or wow, I can't believe you go on a bike ride every day, or whatever. And my response is always like, this isn't a mistake. Like we've built towards this, and it's just taken many years. I mean, we've been in business for 13 years, like, and I really only started to get good at this in the last like 3. It's a skill and it's a muscle, just like anything else.
I love that. Consistency. How many hours of deep work like can you get in like on daily basis?
Yeah, so it depends on how you define this. I think a lot of people define deep work as sitting at my computer, deeply working on something and getting things done. To me, deep work also includes time thinking about stuff, right? So like uninterrupted listening to a song or listening to nothing, where I'm like thinking about that and I'm like, wonder what that could do with that, whatever. And so like I would say in terms of actual deep work where I'm thinking about it deeply, or I'm actually hands-on keyboard doing something, or I'm in a call doing, I mean, some people wouldn't define calls as deep work, but to me, group thinking about stuff is also really helpful in terms of like, what do you think about this? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? We're talking like 4 hours a day, probably 3 hours a day, where it's like the uninterrupted, we're going for it. And predominantly that's what I do. In terms of like meetings and talking to people and this kind of stuff, like that's a much smaller percentage of my time. And when I do that, let's say I have a bunch of conversations with members, okay, that I want to set up and chat with, I will stack those. So I'll be like, on Thursday I'm on calls for like 6 hours, right? And then I won't have calls the whole following week or whatever. And so I'm very hardcore in that routine kind of, and in like
That's
the way
so
that
you
I
don't
like
have
to
to do a
structure
lot
that.
of task shifting.
Exactly. Like I always think it's comical that people say, send me your calendar link, and then like the calendar link has like availability literally every 20 minutes all day for the next 7 months or something. And I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I would never, and I've never done that. Like people are like, why don't you have your assistant? I have an assistant, why don't you have your assistant do booking for you? I'm like, no, I want to be able to manage my own time, like part of the reason why Gracie and I bought a house in Santa Barbara, California is to be able to be outside. So like look, like if it's beautiful, I'm not gonna. I want to be able to go on a bike ride. I want to be able to go to the pool. Like that doesn't mean that I'm not working. Like I'm in the pool. I'll be
Yeah,
swimming for an hour and a half this afternoon. I
yeah,
guarantee you, I'll be thinking about like work stuff. Of like how I can take care of people. I mean, for me, the big thing is
yeah,
that so much of the online stuff is like an online community, an online world is built on little snippets of stuff here and there, and there's very little genuine care. And I think when people come into the founders community, what they realize is that like I really care, and it's like a genuine, we're there for you. Like if you like, I had a member this morning, like a whole bunch of stuff happening in their life in terms of leaving the agency they were at. There's lawsuits, there's a whole bunch of stuff, and like we just talked, and I was like, yeah, about this, you could think about this, or that sucks. I hear you. Like just being with people as human beings, and like that's the difference. And because I have the free time to think about this stuff, they come to me because they have not. And I'm like, well, you should think about it this way or that way. They're like, oh, it's a good point. And it's like, it's not actually that I'm smart. It's literally that I just have more time than you do to actually think through these things. So I think people think that I am like I don't know. I've had members be like, oh, wow, you're so smart, or you're so forward thinking that you thought about that. And I don't really think that I am. I think that the special sauce is that I just give myself more time to have free thinking.
I love that. I really appreciate that, Andrew. I work about um, 2 to 3 hours a day, and I spend a lot of my spare time typically learning like new skills, like dance.
Totally.
Right now, I'm doing salsa dance, or
Nice.
drawing, or other stuff. To me, that the ability to rest well is more important to produce. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because for a while, I'm constantly struggle with this guilt of should I be grinding more versus committed to the rest. It is it's shifting even more significant in the AI ages. There really isn't a whole lot of doing. Most of the things is a judgment and decision.
Totally. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I think a lot of it is too the inputs that you're getting, right? Like inputs in terms of how are you decision making.
Yeah.
AI can tell you a whole bunch of stuff and give you a lot of choices and a lot of things, but like it's just what's the input and who are you trusting? And I think that's going back more to human beings. And I think
Yeah,
um,
true.
into
So
real
can I
life
say,
activities like you talked about,
yeah,
like dancing
yeah,
or whatever. Like it's people will be like, "Oh, that's cool. I can't believe you do that." But like that actually might be the most helpful thing you can do for your business. Like have you like it, and that's not common to think in that lens. So good for you, by the way.
I love that. Yeah, I, 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 so I'm a skill junkie. So since COVID, because I have so much free time, and because, like the isolation, I end up like learning like, I don't know, 10, 20 skills. And for a long time, I was like really guilty about it. But then I'm starting to see something happening on the other domains of my life. It's like there's this things of like watching yourself starting something small, but you don't care because you're consistently doing it every single day, and you're
Yeah.
watching yourself receiving an impact that it's impossible to refuse at that point, because it's literally will just come because if you're just doing it. And I watching myself doing it in so many things in that same concept, and in a way that I'm starting to see it is actually supporting like my thinking and my business. That's why I'm really appreciating that you're sharing that story.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No problem, man.
So you mentioned something. And yesterday I was at a cafe. We have a sweet yard in the neighborhood cafe, and I walked through, and a bunch of people working on different phase of their business, right? I watched like, so there were literally people using Excel, like creating pivot table and trying to input formulas, and people are like literally hand adjusting, dragging PowerPoint and stuff. And you can see people talking to cloud and people talking to, it's like crazy when you see, right? It's like every
Hmm.
single one, like we are probably in the biggest technology divide depending on the context of your work, right? So my question for you is like, how do you, I guess, stay? relevant? How do you make sure you're not blindly spending time on an effort that actually there's another tool out there can be replacing that, in a couple minutes?
Yeah, I think it's one that I think that's a good question, and I think it's one that a lot of us consider often, and this especially now. And I think for me, a lot of it is number one, like setting aside a certain amount of time in my day to do things with AI, or an AI could mean a whole bunch of things, but like with AI tools essentially.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that's one where we're testing, we're trying, we're seeing the limits of it, we're messing, with like the reason we recreated the Foxwell bot is the AI bot is because I was just messing around, and then I was like, this could be way better, and then I reached out to found a member who does this work, and he and I have been collaborating on it, and it's like continually updating in terms of what we're trying to do. So it's like that's just that curiosity, right? I think. And having time set aside for that. I think if you don't have the time, if you're not hardcore about it, and you're like, well, I'll learn about AI when I'm done with work. It's like, well, no, really, like that needs to become part of your job today in terms of
Right.
like how you're thinking through this. So that's one. I think in terms of staying relevant on meta ads, I mean, obviously it's easier to do in the Foxwell community. You can always see like what the updates are and what people are talking about. But the other real one is honestly just going into accounts with members and talking about it with them and saying like, what about that? What about this? What about that? And it's this curiosity all the time for me of the way that people are thinking about stuff, the why, and then it's reading. It's reading on X what people are sharing, what they're talking about, that are in the community and those that are not, and just honestly having like a beginner's mindset pretty consistently. I've been running Facebook ads since they were invented, like I said, and I think one thing that's continued to keep me relevant in the game is that like I'm always trying to understand what the new tactics are that people have and why, and what they are able to, where they fit. And so if a person comes to me, I'm able to help them say, like this, I would think about it this way. And that's just a curiosity. It's just a learning, and it's a dedication to doing that. And how I don't go down the road of like trying tools that are, different things, like, or wasting time on tools. Like the reality is like I do.
We all do. Like,
Like with exploration, sometimes I'm like, well, that was a
I
fucking
have
waste
so
of
many
time.
like I have
I didn't
so
need
many
to
of
do
this.
that.
This could be my thing, like
Yeah, totally. I mean, like some of it is just, you are messing around and you find out, and that's okay. Like it's part, it's just like part of it. I think if you're going to be a curious person, one of the things that you have to know is that you're going to be led down rabbit holes, and you're going to be like, oh wait, this is a bad idea. I'm sorry. And my team likes to make fun of me sometimes for that, because I come up with ideas and then I like get into it. I'm like, actually that was bad. I'm sorry. So that's okay. It's just part of doing it. And I think knowing that you're going to fail is a big part of it. That's a huge recurring theme in my life, of things from when I was mountain bike racing to things now like with weightlifting and in the business. Failure is good. Like it's fine to fail. It's like, otherwise how would you know? Like how would you
That's
know?
good.
And it's not like that startup mentality of like you should fail, but it's like it's sort of that like that idea of like accepting and knowing that you're gonna fail and that you're gonna like lose momentum and you're gonna feel like, why did I do that? But like that's all right. That's part of the process of learning, right? So
That's awesome. Let's spending a few minutes talk about AI versus creative. I know you have a lot of thoughts into this. Um, I want to sound smart to say all these models, Meta, the Jam, the most recent one. Like, the old days of like you have a creative and you go there adjusting some targeting, it's gone, right? That's not up to you anymore. Like the creative like has to be catering to this system they call it, right? Like like what is the some practical advice you could give someone like right now? What There's so many things out there people suggest. What is the most practical thing you think when it comes to creative ideas?
I think if you want to be successful on Meta today, the biggest thing you can do with creative is you can understand how utilizing and understanding different personas within your business, and the issues and problems that those different personas have,
Mm-hmm.
is the way that you will scale. So if you're selling socks and you are selling those to, you're just selling socks, and you're putting out ads for socks, that's not really going to be the thing that works. So then adjusting that message to be like, okay, I'm selling socks for people who are mountain bikers. And then we have an ad that speaks to issues that mountain bikers face, which is your socks smell. Like, these socks don't smell. Here's why. And then there's a landing page that speaks to that particular issue as well. So matching basically the congruency between the ad and the landing page is massive. And coming up with, okay, socks are not just for mountain bikers, they're for hunters, they're for all these different ideas of what a segment of the business could be. And if you're a service-based business, right, like, let's say that you own an auto repair shop, you could translate this the same way. We all have different customers that come in. Right. Auto repair shop is, you have people that are, let's say have a more luxury type vehicle that's a foreign vehicle. So you could create ads that speak to those specifically about the issues that they face. Then you have people that are in an older vehicle that needs certain type of maintenance, right? Like, is your car making this sound? These are the things that we can do to help you diagnose it. So you're speaking to different segments of the customer base. And then in an ideal world, you're also building landing pages that are matching to that. The more that you understand the customer problems and the issues that they face, and this can be done via Reddit research, via researching and looking at your Google reviews, or this could be this could be done in a number of different ways of what other competitors are saying and how they're positioning themselves. But basically, coming out and speaking to those particular problems and showing them the solution is really important. And I think if you can go through and look at the stages of awareness with a potential customer, you're also going to be greatly benefited. A lot of people are focusing their ads on when the customer knows they have a problem. Okay, so that's problem aware. That's part of the consumer stages of awareness. But the reality is there's problem aware, there's problem unaware, there's solution aware, solution unaware. And so there's a lot of different pieces of this of like, they might not even know they have a problem, but they might be thinking about like, that is something I'm concerned about, right? And so you can speak to this as well. So you can kind of take the personas, you can make sure that you're thinking about the diversity of those, the problems that the customer is facing, and thinking about the stages of awareness. And if you start to sort of ruminate on that as a marketing plan with creative, you're going to have a lot more fuel to go off of.
For sure. So let me kind of reiterate back to what you were saying. It sounds like what you're saying is still try to find your persona, segment it out as much as you can, and then within the segmented audience, you want to find out specifically the pain points or the problems that your product or service probably could help them from that angle, and then you create the message that speak specifically to that group, so that their problems is like more, like so that they can build that connection of there's a problem, there's a solution, and you are the solution. Okay, sounds good. And then you also want to make sure that when you're looking at that segment, you also want to know what stage are they potentially at, right? Do they even know this service even exists? Okay, maybe they know this service exists, but maybe there are different competitors out there, and your messaging wants to be specific to that stage as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. Basically, the idea is like, you can't just put one ad out there, or you need to try to have diversity in what you're saying, the issues that your customers might be facing, and considering where they're at in their journey. Maybe they don't know that they need an issue, that they have an issue with the car, but maybe they want to precursor the fact that like they need to have the car looked at to make sure it's in good running shape, right? So it's like getting ready for summer road trips. Maybe have your car have a checkup, right? Like that's a problem unaware, really. Like they're not really thinking about it, but you're meeting them where they're at. So that's the kind of diversity that we're talking about. And Meta and the engines that run Meta now from a creative standpoint, GEM and Andromeda, essentially are rewarding diversity in personas, and also the diversity in creative type and look, right? So like doing a small iteration change of a person wearing a red shirt versus the blue shirt isn't going to do it. It's like it has to be different ideas and different big swings that's going to make people intrigued and interested to to kind of show the engines that it's a different creative.
So you're suggesting you should have a bunch a bunch of different, sort of like in this case, maybe it's like a persona ads, Mary, like, also like within diversity, you're also suggesting you should have even different types, different visual, different hook point, different visual,
Yes.
like vantage points.
Yes.
Um, so client comes to you and say, we only have $1,000 to spend this month. And that really boils down to $30 a day, if you spend the budget right. And they can't afford to run a lot of the ads, not even like as many hooks to angle to go. How would you like suggest clients in those
I would
situations?
probably try, I'd probably try two different ads over a week, and then I would try two different ads the next week, and two different ads the next week, and two different ads the next week. I'd put them all in a campaign budget optimization campaign, and I would just like see. And at the end of the month, you're gonna have the learnings of like, okay, this one did this one did this one did this, and I'd be looking at them from a soft metric standpoint of like, what are people, how long are they watching these ads, etc. And then I would be looking at them obviously from a conversion standpoint as well, to assess like which ones gain the most eyeballs, and also like which ones gain the most attention, and using that as like a map for what you could do in month two. So it's not going to be a ton, and it's not going to be incredibly fast, but it also,
Mm,
I think if you build that alongside of, if they only have $1,000 a month to spend, that's fine. I think if you build that alongside of an organic presence, and you do a lot of organic posting and sort of are talking about different angles of the business, and you're utilizing that as like a testing ground for talking about the problem solution type stuff that people are going through, describing the business, what it's like,
mm.
the reviews that people have had from working with you, all this kind of stuff, right? That's free. It doesn't cost you anything. So people are
Right.
going
So
to click on the ad,
still
and
use the organic content to sort of testing like that
yeah,
angle that could be potent that you could use down the road.
right, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned landing page. Do you still believe that most agency, like most people should, have like the meta, instant form, the whole meta world, but then also take the traffic to your landing page
Yeah,
in
I mean,
addition to.
it depends on the market. I haven't seen great results from lead forms in recent years coming from Meta. They're okay if you put a manual form that, or manual field that has to be filled in there. It's pretty good. So like, like, why do you want to buy that? Why do you want to see this? And like they have to write something in. They can be okay. So I think it's always worth testing. I'm still very bullish on my own landing pages, like having that done. That's that to me is Meta sees them, I think, as more powerful, and the leads that come through lead forms tend to be lower quality.
Wait, so let me make sure. So you're still saying like sending people to landing page to use the
Yeah,
lead
yeah.
form to capture
Leads
route
that come
instead of
through the Meta lead forms tend to be lower
it's
quality than those that are sent to an outside site.
got you, got you, got you. And even if you like do a lot of pre-qualified conditional questions baked in.
If you certainly can, and that can definitely help. And I just it depends on the market. It depends on what you're trying to go for. In some
Got
markets,
you,
it can
got
work really
you.
well. In some, it's more challenging.
Where I'm seeing struggle is call only campaigns in Meta. It's mostly really useless.
Call
Like
only.
lately, yeah, like just
Yeah, yeah. No,
this,
I've never seen those work. I've never
yeah.
seen a call only campaign work.
It just, yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, we were testing it quite a bit, and then it's just not doing much. Um, I want to go back a little bit about, how to get favored by LLM, GEM alike. I know you mentioned the framework. I love that. But practical point of view, I'm seeing kind of this complete shift from my personal experience. I know the system doesn't like corporate feel shiny ads anymore, and that seems like very consistent with many of the stuff I put out there.
Yeah,
Whenever I have a low quality personal stuff perform so much better.
yeah.
Besides that direction, are there anything specific else that you're seeing that people should maybe give it a thought and test out?
I mean, if you're thinking about the LLM piece from like the Andromeda and GEM type of piece, I think it's really a big one of trying to different types. So static ads and video ads. I think it's practically looking at making sure that those ads are probably formatted in 4 by 5, right, so that they can be utilized in stories or in the feed. I think that's a big one. I think that also landing page destination matters a lot in the GEM and Andromeda engines. So making sure that your landing pages have congruency to the ads, or are mobile friendly, or are built so that people are spending time on them because Meta's looking at that. I also think from the creative standpoint, yes, a lot of it is variety, a lot of it is diversity, and a lot of it is understanding pain points of the particular problems that these people might be facing, or they don't know that they're going to be facing yet. I think the more that you utilize and look at what a potential customer that you're going for has in their feed, the more you will be able to be successful. So what I mean by this is, if you're if you're an HVAC shop, right, and you're going to try to find leads within your area from men and women that are 40 to 50 that have 2 kids and they live in a house that's 3,000 square feet or whatever the thing is that you're looking for, right? It's like, try to build your profile like one of those people. Or try to build a profile, start a new one,
so
like one of those people,
so you
that
build
you
a
can
new one,
understand
and
with
then
him.
you go interact with the content to get the system
Yeah,
to
you
thank you
you
or
build
whatever.
exactly. You start to follow the things that they would likely follow. You start to look
Got
at
it.
that,
Okay.
and you start to look at the ads that they see, and you can usually see a surface like, oh, okay, it's interesting. They're seeing this type of content where there's a lot of people talking to the camera. They're seeing a lot of long form content. They're seeing a lot of it could be that they're seeing a lot of cool product imagery, right? Like, what are the things that they're seeing, and then you can start to sort of mirror this and be innovative on that idea. The ads that are working, it depends on what you're trying to do, but really the ads that are working right now are speaking specifically to consumer problems and are mostly people speaking about that issue and being able to solve it. So, it's like, do you have low testosterone? Like, do you feel like low energy?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
and then you're able to
yeah.
kind of come in there. I saw one that was a long form ad that was like 3.5, 4 minutes long. That was basically like telling a story. This woman told a whole story about an automatic toothbrush, and like, let me tell you about this toothbrush. And it was scripted, and the person read this script, like the UGC creator that they used in this ad, and it was a really, really long ad. But they were telling a story of like, I got this brush. It's like, it cleans it, but it's not even about the brush. It's like the brush starts, and then later they get to like talking about how much the brush costs. It's like, I had this really gross old brush that was like sit on my counter, and it was like getting the toothpaste every night. It would sit like on there, and it was like really gross. And so I kept throwing away these toothbrushes. It didn't make any sense. It felt like it wasn't good for the environment, and da 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 da. You know, so you start to, it's like these things you wouldn't necessarily know to build an ad around. You can really go through and be like, oh, that's the type of stuff they're seeing. I can mirror that and potentially start, or mirror it and improve upon it, right, as a way to start to creatively diversify what I'm doing.
I love it. I love it. So I have a client that does assisted stretch, and so last year I did a lot of, B-roll stuff like show and tell, and not as well performing compared to this year where there is this sort of problem hook and solution, and then very quick. And because last year we have a lot of very well produced b-roll, like it looks very like very well produced, and they really are actually talking about, hey, this service can do this, we'll give you first free. And it was at the beginning was doing something, but then I feel like, especially this year, I feel like the more we were leaning into like, this is a problem, like you're working up stiff, turns out, do you know how to stretch correctly? It's actually impossible to stretch by yourself because your body, it's like, I'm starting to actually treating my content as authority for
Yeah,
truly
totally.
helping the community. Just like, let's not do ads anymore. Let's just figure out if someone really have a problem with the pain, how could we make ourselves as like truly the expert in stretch and like knowing how to solve a lot of problems from that angle.
Yeah, I mean, so like assisted stretch is an example of something that you could do, right, where like people love watching other humans going through something. So like showing people on a table getting an assisted stretch and people being like, "Oh my god," or "Oh man, I
Yeah,
feel," right,
like
like
the
that would work really
those
well, like
pops,
because
like the
like
muscle pops.
you've seen that in like
Yeah,
chiropractic ads, and that
yeah.
works insanely well. Like there's an entire subgenre of advertising and the organic content that comes from like chiropractic offices where they're going through and
See a
popping
bunch of
people's
them
backs.
because they
And
probably have the same popping problems.
yeah, yeah, and it's crazy. Like, and they'll put the mic next to the people's like back that's cracking, and like that. So my point is that like that has its whole other like you have avenue you can go down, and I think the more that you don't overthink it, don't overproduce it, you just start putting stuff out there, and you test it organically, right? Like there's more that can happen. I think so. It's big.
Awesome. Something more practical because I just really want to get your own, like your practical advice on this. So we had an ad that was really getting a lot of volumes last year, and it is the majority of the spenders, and it's just a text overlay with like white text on black background and just like hitting one of those pinpoints, and it was doing really well. And then until one day it was not starting to decay. Like, but the post itself got a lot of comments and sharing or so on and so forth. And we had to actually shut it down because the cause is no longer effective, and we have to like launching new ads and stuff. And then 2 months later, we relaunched that same ad, kicking ass again. Like don't understand why. Just simply kicking ass.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts on some of this? Like I know there is a lot of like aggressive strategy people suggesting. You should always push a new creative, do all of this, but something it's working. It's just working too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely, it's a strategy to turn on old performers again. 100%. Relaunch them, put them in a new campaign, use the ad ID. Like, 100, that's very viable, and I think that's a great idea. Like, it doesn't always have to be brand new. It could be something that's worked before that stopped working, right? Or maybe something that
Yeah.
kind of was working maybe, but you had another high
I
performer at
think
the
it was
time, so it didn't really get the
maybe
amount of spend.
somehow the signal got muddled because someone
Sure.
didn't manage in the comments or something like
Yeah.
immediately enough.
Yeah. I think that's 100%. That's a good strategy. 100%.
Sweet. I want to leave. So this show week is called Hack Your Metrics. So we typically talk about a lot of data and just like very honest stuff. I want to leave you with last question. So, what metrics do you think is completely worthless these days? And then, what metrics are you hugging?
The metrics that I think are worthless these days is like a lot of it is return on ad spend is like really hard to look at. It's like because it's for so long people used it, but it doesn't really tell the real story of the whole customer journey and what they've done for you. And the metrics that I'm really hugging are things like like basically net new reach is a huge one. How many new people are we reaching? Percentage of new customer visits is another one. Those are kind of the ones that I've really been focusing on, honestly.
It's just making sure you get enough gauge on the core audience,
Yeah.
new ones. Yeah. Um, awesome. Well, Andrew, we're gonna leave it there. I really appreciate your time. This has
Thank
been
you.
great.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
it's been good to be
So
on. Thank you for having me.